The character that I'm using for this tutorial is designed by one of my talented students, Shao. I chose this character for these video lessons because it features lots of details that allow me to practice some new approaches for rigging and animating them. Before we bring our design into After Effects, we need to prepare the character and break it into layers so we can rig each body part individually. This means each moving part should be separated into a layer. However, in cases that the design of the character is organic, we use puppet pins to deform them, and this eliminates the need for breaking the bending parts into layers. As you can see in this character, the legs are one layer, and I haven't separated the upper leg, lower leg, foot, and toes. Similar to that, the arm is not separated to upper arm and forearm. The body, in this case named dress, is also one layer, and soon we are going to add puppet pins to them to act as joints for bending and deforming these parts. In this particular character, you can see that I have also extracted all the small details into individual layers. The sleeve is separated, the hair ribbons are extracted, and even each ribbon is sitting on a separate layer. This allows me to rig each one of these details and animate them individually to give a more organic look to the motion. I also extracted 2 hair strands so that I can animate them individually and create an overlapping action on the hair as well. I understand that separating each one of these layers means more work in the rigging process, but when it's time to animate them, I will explain in detail how we can write expressions for them so we don't need to spend a lot of time to animate them piece by piece. As for the facial features, we usually extract the eyes, ears, mouth, and even nose if needed, so we can animate them individually. As opposed to the traditional frame-by-frame animation, in puppet animation we don't have the luxury of changing the shapes of the body parts as we animate. So in cases like hands, where we need different drawings to represent different actions, like different hand gestures, we should prepare them beforehand while designing the character, and we are going to set them up in After Effects so we can easily switch to each one of them during the animation stage. Similar to that, I have mouth shapes like sad, smile, angry, and so on. You should also notice that all of these drawings are sitting in one main folder called mouth, because regardless of the mouth shape they are representing, they are actually the mouth of the character. When we get into rigging the mouth and hand gestures, I will show you the reason we are putting all these shapes in a group. Fortunately, we can always add more drawing replacements even after we rig or animate the character. But it is a good practice to think ahead of time and design all the drawing replacements that we need for hands, mouth, brows, eyes, and so on. So when we are deep in After Effects animating the character, we don't need to come back to Photoshop and add more drawings and then update the rig with the new drawings. One more important thing about preparing layers for cutout or puppet style animation is to make sure that we give the layers the freedom to rotate around their articulation point without noticing the separation. For example, in cases like hands, where we have the hand layer sitting on top of the arm layer and the hand layer is going to rotate around, we need to make sure that the drawings are extended in a way that there is a perfect circular overlap between the 2 layers, making sure that no gap shows up between the 2 layers. For these situations, the anchor point should be sitting exactly in the center of the circular overlapping drawing. Lastly, I think it's obvious, but since it's important, I will also mention that before we import our character into After Effects, we need to properly and carefully name all the layers and groups. It's because when we import a multi-layered file into After Effects, it respects the layer names, and if the layers are not named properly, we will easily get overwhelmed with some poorly named layers. With all this said, I think the character is ready to be imported into After Effects. I'm going to do final cleanup in the file and delete any layer that is not related to the character. These 2 solid layers that you see here, I'm using them as a background color so I can actually make sure that my drawings are clean. And by that I mean, for example, you might have accidentally drew something on your layers, or when you were extracting the layers from the background, you didn't notice that you were grabbing some of the pixels from the background as well. I have noticed that the dress layer is containing some leftover pixels. The way I actually notice that is by the use of the move tool, and I usually turn on the show transform controls. This brings up the bounding box for each one of the layers that you select, and that is a good indicator that actually helps you to understand that you might be dealing with some leftover pixels that are not that visible. So in this case, I'm just noticing that this dress layer is containing some extra pixels that I need to delete, and now you can see that the bounding box is only containing the drawing itself. I believe we are all set. I'm going to delete all of these extra layers here, and I'm going to just save this file as a new version. Alright, I think we are ready to bring this character into After Effects.